Hi and welcome to the channel. Today we will unbox this Sapphire Nitro Plus RX 7800 XT. I bought this for 37,000 pesos, which is pretty expensive, but still cheaper than my best friend's RTX 4070. I was late in the release of this video, as the release of the 7800 XT was also late in the Philippines. I was checking daily if the 7800 XT arrived already, but to no avail until September 25. Anyway, at the front of the box, you'd see the cool Nitro Plus art. You'd also see the amount of VRAM, which is 16GB. At the back, you'd see Sapphire Pantheon with a plus on the O for some reason. Pantheon means Temple of Gods, and it's my first time seeing this marketing from Sapphire. Anyway, I'll just pause here and zoom into this marketing material for 2 seconds. Looking back at the old Nitro Plus cards, those were more serious in their marketing tone. For me though, I prefer the serious and straight to the point tone of older Sapphire GPUs, as these are not for kids. This is me as a professional though, so it might just be me and you might prefer the new one, which is also fine. Anyway, opening the box. Upon opening, you'd see a brown carton box, and inside you'd see a tin foam padding around half an inch. Immediately, you'd see a few papers. One is this manual for the GPU's ARGB to sync with your motherboard, and at the bottom is related to their BIOS. There's also a manual for the GPU card support bracket, and another manual for quick installation. There's an accessory box at the bottom. The box contains an ARGB cable, and that's it. It's a waste of box. There's also a GPU bracket with screws. Here's the GPU itself. Obviously, it has 3 fans, no cover for the PCIe, but it has cover for the output ports. Typical Sapphire. And as for the dimensions, it is 320mm by 134mm by 61.57mm. 61.57mm means that it has 3 slots. And as for the output ports, it has 2 display ports and 2 HDMI. It has a cool looking backplate, and typical to a Nitro Plus solution, they put thermal pads in between the board and the backplate for extra cooling. As for the power connectors, it requires 2 8-pin PCIe connectors as its total board power is 275 watts. You can also notice the ARGB pinouts here, which you would then use this cable to connect to your motherboard to sync. I find this a good touch as you don't need to download extra software just for RGB. But of course, it will be an extra clutter to the build. Speaking of RGB, they have an RGB light bar here at the front and at the back plate with the Sapphire logo. Default color is Unicorn Puke. Another feature is their fan header input, which you can connect to your case fans. Usually, case fans attached to the motherboard are curved based on CPU temps. With this, you can curve it to the GPU temps instead. However, it seems that you need Sapphire Strix for that. I did not test it though, but it is worth mentioning, and so pick your poison: third-party fan curve software or Sapphire Strix software. You can also notice its triple BIOS switch design. Previously, they labeled this as performance and quiet mode, but now it's just primary and secondary. So I really don't know the difference between the two. The third BIOS, similar to their old GPUs, is to switch via Sapphire Strix software. Last feature worth mentioning is their fan quick connect, which you can remove the fan easily and email Sapphire to send another fan for you. As for cooling, it will be expelled to the top and under the GPU, which is normal for this size. It looks beefy and has enough vents to expel heat. Anyway, as for the temps while benchmarking FF15 for 30 minutes, the GPU temps averaged at 67.62 degrees Celsius with a max temp of 70 degrees Celsius. The hotspot temps averaged at 85.83 degrees Celsius with a max temp of 89 degrees Celsius. At this point, you would be thinking that this is underwhelming, and that's why I always include the fan speed, which averaged at just 25% with a max of 33%. This translates to 1,181 RPM and 1,478 RPM respectively. While the GPU temps were acceptable, they did it with a phenomenal slow fan speed. Given that I tried to tune the fan curve of the GPU using AMD Adrenalin, I just used the default AMD fan curve for this. It resulted in a drastically cooler GPU at an average of 53.25 degrees Celsius with a max temp of 55 degrees Celsius. The hotspot temps averaged at 71.68 degrees Celsius with a max temp of 77 degrees Celsius. The fan speeds averaged at 57.79% and a max of 61% or 2,327 RPM. It means that I had 14 degrees Celsius improvement for more than twice of the fan speed. And you have another 1,400 RPM to spare, though it will be loud. 2 items here though. First is that this shows the potential of Sapphire's cooling, that they can easily bring down the temperature through brute force. However, I find the 20 degrees Celsius hotspot difference to be too high, although still in the acceptable range. Ideally, you'd see a 10 to 15 degrees Celsius difference from the GPU core. This suggests a mounting pressure issue, but not on a critical level. And as for the benchmarks, Looking at average gains and losses against the RX 7800 XT, the 4070 is at the negligible region. Also, this is the weirdest AMD chart that I've seen in a while, as its 4K scaling is actually good. Usually AMD's 4K is really bad. Looking at RX 6600, it performed 50% worse in 1080p, but its price now is $200 or 40% of the 7800 XT, which means that it is still the bang for the buck for that resolution. You'd also get an average of 102 FPS in 1080p. For 1440p, it is still worth considering the RTX 4060 and RX 7600, as you'd get the same dollar to performance ratio against the 7800 XT, and also at an average of 90 FPS. For 4K, again you have no choice but to get the 4070 and 7800 XT with an average of 80 FPS. The 4060 Ti has no place in this, as it is just 20% cheaper, but you'd get 28% worse performance in 1440p and 33% worse performance in 4K. It can be argued that it can battle at 1080p, but $400 for a 1080p GPU sounds like a waste of money. Anyway, I did not finish the testing without an issue. First is the Windows mouse cursor did not render properly while on top of a game. This is apparent in FF15 benchmarks and Forza Horizon's menu, as Forza utilizes the Windows mouse cursor. The second issue is that I encountered the gray screen of death twice. To be clear, this may not be an AMD Radeon issue but rather an MSI motherboard issue, as after restart, the Bluetooth was not working. I have to isolate this further. So as for the first issue, this is likely to be a driver issue though, which is AMD's weakness, still apparent in 2023 though. As for my pet peeve, well, it is the same as other YouTubers. This is just an upgrade to the RX 6800 non-XT and not an upgrade to the 6800 XT, as it performs roughly in that category, which means that for me, this is a downgrade in terms of naming convention. Linus Tech Tips called it,
"Are we committed to XT and XTX?"
JZ2 called it,
"The non-XT days are gone."
but they're both wrong on the XT part, as RX 7600 does not have an XT. So to the person who is naming things at AMD, this is coming from me, a buyer of your product. Please remove your creative brain and make it more coherent. You are not naming monitors. Anyway, as for overall recommendation, again, if you are a 1080p gamer, go with the RX 6600. Don't waste your money with this GPU. For 1440p, still consider RX 6600 as an entry level, while 4060 and 7600 as mid-range options. You'd get the same dollar to performance ratio. In other words, pay 30% more of the price to gain 30% more FPS. For longer term 1440p, consider the RTX 4070 and this RX 7800 XT. At 4K, it will be a battle between the 7800 XT and the 4070. In the Philippines, the RTX 4070 has dropped its base price to 36,000 pesos, while the base 7800 XT is 33,000 pesos, meaning just $50 difference for the two. 3,000 pesos may not be a lot at this price range, so it's up to you if 4070's advantage is worth it. Namely, better power consumption, better productivity, definitely better drivers. Though the 7800 XT has a 4GB VRAM advantage, and of course, it's using basic 8-pin power connectors. For some reason though, finding the 7800 XT here in the Philippines is really tough, which is kind of weird. Personally, it's really tough for me to choose. However, just for the VRAM alone, I'd go with the 7800 XT if you can find one. If not, it's definitely okay to choose the RTX 4070, especially if you'd like to focus on the driver stability. As for Sapphire Nitro Plus, well, if you can find this, I think it's worth it at 3,000 pesos or $50 premium. Although some of the features require Sapphire's proprietary Trix software, its default configuration is cool enough and definitely meek and quiet. I have 3 Nitro Plus now and I'm still mind blown how they tune the fan curves. Its big design, however, will be a turn off for SFF case builders. Anyway, that's it for this video. Do let me know in the comments down below on what you think of this GPU. Thanks for watching. Do like or dislike and subscribe for more unboxing, SFF build, and benchmarks. Bye!